Legal scholars. In this video, we're looking at how to answer one of the biggest questions you could be asked on an exam: a critical evaluation of Parliament as a lawmaker. This question could be worth anything up to 10 marks. Like most of the longer exam questions that you'll get an overall mark based on how well you respond to the prompt. This means that you can structure your response in a way that suits you. At the same time, I would advise students to be prepared to write about as many as 5 strengths and 5 weaknesses of Parliament. If you get a 10-mark question, that's roughly 1 strength and weakness per mark. Also, the best way to structure a critical evaluation question is probably to write about a strength, then a weakness that relates to the strength, then another strength, another related weakness, and so on. When evaluating, you need to express an opinion on whether Parliament is an effective lawmaker overall, but you still need to have a balanced set of strengths and weaknesses. Think of it as having an argument with yourself before coming to some sort of agreement. Angus, surely Parliament is the best lawmaking body that we have. I mean, its main role is to make law. That means it's really well equipped and resourced to pass legislation. At the same time though, Angus, Parliament doesn't even have total power. Even though its main role is to make law, there are a whole lot of things that the Constitution stops it from doing. Federal Parliament can't amend the Constitution without holding a referendum, for instance. True, but you could also see that as a good thing. Those restrictions could prevent Parliament from being able to abuse their power, and they're only minimal anyway. Parliament has the power to make laws on whole areas of law. This means that they can keep law well-researched and consistent. Look at the Crimes Act, for example. Victorian Parliament passed a piece of legislation covering crime. I'd say that's a pretty big area of law. These massive acts are often worded very broadly, though. That can lead to loopholes in the law. It could also mean that some laws are unclear and need to be interpreted by courts. Good point, Angus. Another positive of parliaments is that they're made up of elected officials, and their role is to represent the people. That often means that laws are made to reflect the views of society. I agree that that can be positive, but in reality, Parliament does not always represent the majority. Governments and MPs might be influenced by pressure groups or businesses who give money to political parties to make sure that their own interests are represented. You could argue that Parliament really makes laws for the wealthy. Parliament really does try to make sure that laws are well made, though. There's extensive debate in Parliament, which is available for anyone to watch online or in person, and politicians make media appearances in which they can inform the people and consult with them. All this debate might lead to nothing, though. Governments often refuse to legislate on really controversial areas for fear of losing a whole lot of votes come election time. There's a huge amount of community support for voluntary euthanasia, but neither of the main political parties at state level are actually willing to change the law. On the other hand, Parliament can act quickly if it needs to. Back in 2008, during the global financial crisis, Kevin Rudd was able to pass his economic stimulus package only 10 days after he announced the plan. That's true, although Parliament can't always act quickly because it's not always sitting. In 2014, the House of Representatives only sat for 72 days out of the year. Angus, can we try and agree here? Based on our discussion, I'd say that Parliament is overall a good lawmaking body, but it has some practical flaws that need to be fixed. Completely agree with you, Angus. Apply that same approach to any question that asks you for a critical evaluation. Have a balanced look at the strengths and weaknesses, but make sure you ultimately come to a conclusion. Thanks for watching and happy studying.